Welcome to Movies Are Life. I'm your host, Nathan Chandler. I'm fresh from coming back from my Chicago vacation, which ironically is the setting for the number 12 film on the 50 best rom-coms list, While You Were Sleeping. I'm excited to welcome in today's guest. I'm sorry. Who are you again?
We barely know each other, I guess. I'm Abel Cass.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. Let's see. We went to the same church growing up for a while.
Okay.
We knew each other in college.
Oh, yeah.
There was that one year where we roomed together, where we shared an apartment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
we've hung out at least in person, at least once a year in person, I think, since graduation, with maybe a couple of exceptions.
Okay. I guess I'm just gonna go with it because I guess I'm just gonna trust that you're okay. You're okay
Wait,
person to talk about this
Nathan,
movie.
Nathan, do you have amnesia?
Maybe. How did I get here? No. No. It's good to say. Abel and I, we go way back, and Longview roots, Baylor roots, and then just trying to survive roots now, I guess. So, but
Yep.
you might recognize his voice. He was part of our panel that discussed the delightful movie Dear Evan Hansen, which was not good. But this at least I'm sure you're a little bit more excited about. And one of the reasons that you're perfect for this is because I don't even know how it came up, but you were always very vocal with the fact that you have always been a big Sandra Bullock fan.
Absolutely. Who's not? I mean, who
it's
can
really
honestly say they're not a Sandra Bullock fan?
That's true. Well, let's grab our subway token, winter coats, and integrate ourselves into a family who we don't know at all with While You Were Sleeping.
You have to tell me what to do. I like Jack.
Pull the plug.
You are sick.
I'm sick. You're cheating on a vegetable.
Caravan Pictures presents Sandra Bullock.
These are your husband's things.
Not my husband!
Your fiancé.
Bill Pullman.
She drives you so crazy, you don't know whether to hug her or just arm wrestle her.
Peter Gallagher.
He's awake.
Your family's here, Peter.
In a film about love at second sight.
Who are you?
While You Were Sleeping.
Shouldn't have left the booth.
Oh, I shouldn't have left the booth.
Shouldn't have left the booth.
While You Were Sleeping is a 1995 American romantic comedy film directed by John Turteltaub and written by Daniel G. Sullivan and Frederick LeBeau. It stars Sandra Bullock as Lucy, a Chicago Transit Authority token collector, and Bill Pullman as Jack, the brother of a man whose life she saves. The movie also stars Peter Gallagher as Peter, the man who is saved, another Peter Boyle, and Glynis Johns as a member of Peter's family. And there's also, you might recognize him, Jack Warden as a longtime family friend and neighbor. The film was a critical and commercial success, grossing over $182 million at the box office. Bullock and Pullman received praise for their performances, and Bullock also garnered a nomination at the Golden Globe Awards for Best Actress in a motion picture, comedy, or musical. Okay, Abel, so we kind of teased it at the beginning, but why do you love Sandra Bullock so much?
I mean, as it pertains to this particular film, she absolutely carries the film. She is the star performance. I don't know how anybody said anything positive about Bill Pullman after this. It was not his best work.
I'm sure we'll get into it. Yeah, it's I don't think he's horrible in it at all. Yeah. I could make the argument of being miscast because I'm a Bill Pullman fan. I like the stuff he's done and stuff, but
yes, he's a great president.
Yeah, he does. But someone might say that he has the potential to save us from aliens, even. But
I would follow him into battle.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with just she carries this movie.
And I think she does often when she's on screen, right? So I'm doing all of this to gloss over the fact that I just think she's, attractive and wonderful. She's one of my heartthrobs, right? She just is. I think she's, got kind of a classic look. I think she's got kind of a deadpan humor that's really fun. I think she doesn't take herself too seriously in the films that she's in. She seeks out those like humorous roles that are kind of self-deprecating, and all of those things, push all the right buttons for me and make her just a joy to see on screen. I can't believe I watched as much of Netflix's Bullet Train as I did without realizing she was the voice on the other end. Spoilers for anybody that hasn't seen it. But yeah, when she pops out at the end, I'm like, of course, that's why she was so reassuring in the background the whole time. And I don't know, she's still got it for me. So yeah.
I would say I probably have like underappreciated her like as a whole, like as her career's gone on, and like probably here and there I've seen her and stuff. I did the Second Best Picture podcast with our friends Kyle and Brandon, and we did Speed. And when I'd watch that, I mean, she clearly is a standout, because in that we talked about how Keanu Reeves, it was like definitely in his Keanu Reeves-ness at that time, and he's good as the action star in there, but there's a lot of weight that's thrown on her shoulders in that movie, and she brings a lot of life and humanity to Speed. And I'm trying to think. I won't get into it because it will be a podcast on its own, but I did watch 2 Weeks Notice kind of ahead of schedule and watched her in that. But I've just noticed in the things I've seen lately, not just romantic comedies, but if she's not completely carrying the film, she definitely brings, I think, the material up, which in this case, so which I don't know if it's fair. So you being a fan of Sandra Bullock, has this made you a fan of this movie?
So this is about like how I came into it. I think probably almost, I don't remember when I first watched it. Okay.
Right.
It came out in 95. I didn't have a girlfriend in 95, so I'm sure that it wasn't like going to the theater to impress anybody. I'm almost positive that we did like in high school, you came to a few of them. We had a group of friends that we just got together on, I can't remember, Friday or Saturday night, probably not Friday night, because that would have been football, whatever in Texas, but Saturday night or something like that, we would get together and we would watch a film, we'd all go to Blockbuster, and, or not. I think a lot of times it was kind of rotating, and you just kind of watched whoever was hosting or whatever, somebody was going to get the film, get the movie and bring it or whatever. And we ended up getting exposed to a lot of stuff that I think we wouldn't have been exposed to otherwise. Watched a lot of films that I think, I didn't go well, a lot of real bummers in there. But it was great. It was great bonding time. It was a really special thing that I don't know how that happens in the world anymore. I don't even know that it happened a whole lot for a lot of people at the time that we were doing it, but we just had this really committed group of friends. And like I said, I think you were there for some of them. I'm sure that this was one of those films at some point. It could have been my choice because I was a Sandra Bullock fan. It might have been something I picked up and I'm like, we're going to watch this because I want to see Sandy. So, I think that was probably how I got into it, was probably seeking her out, or by kind of happening, backing into it because somebody in the group of friends brought it, and was delighted to see that, Sandra Bullock was a part of it.
I think it's been a long time since I'd seen this movie, and Whitney watched this with me, and so did Hallie, and obviously it was Hallie's first time, but I would equate it almost, it had been a while for Whitney as well since she had seen it. And to me, and it kind of makes sense, it came out a little bit after Sleepless in Seattle, but I kind of equate the two movies kind of in the same vein. Like, I don't think you could run across anybody who necessarily has a bad thing to say about While You Were Sleeping. I think if anybody's seen it, maybe is that time when it came out, but even if they didn't see it then, I think, even though my initial feelings are like, I don't think it's the strongest rom-com ever. I think it's a very cozy type of film. Like it seems derivative to say it's a cute film, but I don't think that's a bad thing to say. That I think it's cute. And even in preparation for this podcast, I'm glad I was doing it with you because I knew we could easily go back and forth about this. But as a movie, I don't have like a whole lot to say about it necessarily. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. I mean, we're watching it because it's on the rom-com list, right? There, as a movie podcast, as someone who's not, I'm not a self-professed movie buff in any sense. I've seen a lot because I, was a roommate in college with a lot of guys, and because we had this high school group, and I kind of got into movies that way. But it's not necessarily my thing. And I understand from talking to movie people for the better part of my life now. Like there's nothing special happening with the cinematography of this. The camera work is, it's all the same soft lighting kind of stuff. There's nothing special happening with the script.
Right.
That there aren't just a ton of really moving. So you said you watched it with your wife and your daughter. I also watched this with my wife and my daughter. My son was in the room playing a video game.
Yeah.
Whatever. So this is kind of the first romantic comedy that my daughter watched. I've got some fun stuff to share about that.
Good.
But in talking to my wife about it and everything, we realized that my wife, had never seen Jerry Maguire.
Okay.
And so we watched Jerry Maguire 2 nights ago. Right after basically, we watched this again, and it was the first time, and it is full. It's a Cameron Crowe film. It's full of dialogue that is gripping. Like it pulls you in. Who cares who the actors are or whatever? Like, it's just as good an audiobook as I think it is a movie, right? This isn't that. The dialogue's not special. Like I said, the camera work's not anything special. The acting outside of Sandra Bullock and some really wonderful performances by Glynis Johns, right? Peter Boyle, like the humor of it plays very well, I think, still. But outside of that, I mean, it's also not. I don't know. It's not a hardcore comedy that leaves you rolling. It's got some good belt chuckles in it, and that's it, right? I mean, I'm with you. There's not a lot film wise to really discuss here,
right?
Except for I think the things that make it kind of unique as a rom-com, which is in my watching it or whatever, the role that family plays in this rom-com makes it special and paved the way for other movies like my Big Fat Greek Wedding. Would have never existed had we not had a While You Were Sleeping First.
Yeah, I would even argue, even though I actually never saw Home for the Holidays, but also there's the other one, The Family Stone, which I'm not like, I remember seeing, I just can't recall a whole lot about it, but both of those movies are playing off very much of this family aspect and the holidays. And I'm sure they had to be influenced by this movie that way.
Yeah, definitely.
And that was something I picked up a lot on this film, and I think is probably one of the bigger takeaways is the power of family. I think as you get older, and especially as you integrate, into your spouse's life and have your kids and all those things, it definitely has probably a stronger. We connect to it stronger now than when we initially saw it when it came out. Because it definitely. I could not necessarily relate to Sandra Bullock's character of Lucy so much, but I get the of her being so lonely. Like you get that aspect because when the holidays come around now, you think of those people who are sick or when people I think definitely when COVID was running rampant, I mean you were thinking about like everybody, that was like a pretty lonely holiday, and I couldn't help but think of that time, so that definitely is, I would say, still holds up in that sense, in this movie.
Absolutely. I love that you pointed that out. I think we talked about it. Everybody had their own kind of battle with COVID, but we definitely had a friend who was very good at vocalizing to us that like her experience as a single woman was just radically different from our own, and her struggles were different from our own. And I wonder, how she might identify with, or have identified, especially coming right out of quarantine, kind of when everything started to reopen or whatever, with this idea of like, I just want to be in the room while people are opening up presents, right? Which is the the point in the movie where I think we should, as an audience, fall in love with what it's trying to do.
Yes. So another thing, and when you start this, it seems so obvious, and you might disagree with me here, but I couldn't help. I was like, why don't people consider this as a Christmas movie? I never hear of this movie like popping up on the every year that comes around. What's your favorite? Like, was that kind of maybe a surprise to you?
I think it has a place there, right? I think it's because they don't sing a single carol in the movie. Is that a thing?
Well, that could be a possibility because, and we'll talk a little bit later about the soundtrack, but the soundtrack itself is, if you bought it off the shelves, it's just the score. Someone who made a playlist on Spotify that threw a couple of songs in there that I'm sure played at some point, like of Christmas music. But it's not quite like in your face, maybe as other Christmas movies are. But it's definitely, I mean, the whole setting is like right before Christmas, like through New Year's, I mean, it's like, it's right there. And I just thought that was really funny. Like, I mean, this is it seems almost right, like a perfect film just to throw on during the holidays. But
and totally, I say totally, very safe, right? So part of, and again, we'll get into this maybe a little bit more as we go, but part of why I think it was still enjoyable to watch. Well, part of it is because I found out also my wife can pretty much quote the whole movie. I had no idea she'd seen it as many times as she has. Discovering it's great. We've been married for 15 years now, and discovering something like that, shared interest in a Sandra Bullock film. We'll leverage that, I'm sure, again in the future. But the idea that I could watch it with my daughter who's young, and my son who's even a little bit younger, and didn't really need to feel like I needed to stop the movie at any point and explain something or kind of apologize as a parent for something, right? But we don't really make that joke anymore, like that kind of stuff that happens so often when we go back and rewatch older films now. I think there was none of that. It was a very safe film. It was a very enjoyable film. The jokes are lighthearted. Nobody's really attacked, in the film. I think even the really blatant stereotypes that get made with Joe, Joe Italian.
Why don't you go out with me? I'm a horrible. I don't do impressions very well, but it's like, I was just like, I almost appreciated. So the actor's name is Michael Rispoli. I mean, at least his last name kind of fits with the character a little bit. But he plays Joe Jr., Lucy's like neighbor who constantly goes out with him. To the film's credit, they stuck with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was kind of like, like, at least you're like, if we're going to have a character like this, we're just going to go with it. And even maybe like his character kind of wore me down by the end, where I was like, it's Joe Jr. Look at him. He's so silly. Throw him in the closet. Who cares? But
I love that. Yes. He could have been 5 minutes in. You could have seen the plumber's butt, and that could have been the end of Joe Jr. And, that would have been fine. But we don't. I think the movie does a great job of kind of making everybody lovable, right? It's this woman who has created a space around herself that she's her view, her kind of positivity and warm and loving view of the people around her is infectious and becomes what I don't know, the reason to watch the movie and the reason to rewatch the movie if it's been a while.
Oh yeah, for sure. We talked we mentioned how much Sandra Bullock obviously carries this film. She's wonderful in it. She's delightful. She just knows she's such a good actress because you connect to her because she makes herself. I mean, it really seems like a real life person, that you would run into, but you're clearly like watching a Hollywood star. So, but as far as the family itself, I mean, and you kind of mentioned them, but especially, I mean, Peter Boyle's always been an amazing actor. I've always liked him.
Good.
Jack Warden as Saul, very good. Glynis Johns. I mean, they did really good casting this family around her. It's funny to see Peter Gallagher, even though I read a little bit that like to be convinced, like to be a convincing coma patient, he actually slept through a lot of those scenes because which but he gets a little bit more things to do, like kind of the end. But he's a very active actor, so it was kind of funny to see him with not as many wrinkles, I guess this time.
Yeah.
But were there any performances that like stood out to you besides Sandra Bullock?
I mean, you said it right. I mean, we could go down the list. Like you said, Peter Boyle, Glynis Johns, Jack Warden. I think Jason Bernard that plays Jerry, the boss.
Yes.
The voice of reason in the film, right?
Yes. Yeah.
The one that plays the role of the audience, watching and like trying to set this right. I think they do a great job. Michael Rispoli with Joe Jr. I think they all do an excellent job. The one that's missing is Bill Pullman. Bill Pullman in this film. On one level, it really works because it really draws the attention to what I'm saying. I think the point of the film it is not about the romantic connection between these two individuals, but it is really about, finding a family and falling in love, and making sure that the person, I don't think there's, like we just mentioned, Jerry Maguire, right? What's the scene where they talk about stealing the pootie from the single mother or whatever, right? Like it's not about the kid, right? It's not about the family, but the family is as much a part of it as the romantic partner is, right? And so I think Bill Pullman does a good enough job that we don't, we're not looking for Peter to wake up and be the love interest.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I mean, a lot of his part is just super awkward to watch, awkward to listen to. I don't know, Nathan, it feels like you or I playing opposite of Sandra Bullock for a lot of the movie.
Yeah.
But not in a way that makes me feel like I got a chance just to know the next movie.
Well, in this, I'm just kind of reading into, but like kind of reading a little bit about this background of this movie. There was a lot of potential, both in her role, Sandra Bullock's role, and his role. Like there was a lot of potential names. I think this was a script that had been floating out there for like a really long time, and they kept on trying to get different actors and stuff like that. And this might be reading too much into it, but it almost maybe kind of feels like because they couldn't get certain actors, Bill Pullman became the actor, and so
feels right, Nathan.
Yeah, and I know that might seem too much, but I really don't. Like if you read kind of the history of this film, it kind of very much like feels like, okay, we got this, we got the production schedule. We got to go with somebody, Bill Pullman, like we've said, great actor, kind of good actor. And the one thing I did like about his character, I do like that you like from the get-go know that he like is into her. I did enjoy that aspect of his performance of like, just when it's like so obvious, like when a guy, likes a girl.
Yeah, when he's watching her sleep on the couch. Is that what you...
Well, I forgot about that. But more so like in their interactions, or just I liked how he was always kind of bugged by either, whether it's like the Joe Jr. character, the jealousy aspect, and you have a brother. I just have a sister, but I did like the kind of family dynamic because most siblings that you find, they're like completely opposite of one another. And so I don't know if you can relate to that at all, but I like that. I like that he would know that she was like no way engaged, to this guy, to the man he knows at least, but
my brother and I definitely don't go for the same type. So that's
what did you like the scene between him and Peter Boyle when he finally tells him that he doesn't want to be part of the family business?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's another like kind of anti-Disney princess, like fantasy of the rom-com kind of thing that I think I really respect the movie for, which is, they're not holding out hope that the other's going to make a change or something. Like they're very honest with each other in part of the movie. What I love is like, there's that scene where they kind of break on each other and they're like, here's what's wrong with you. Here's what you've been needing to do for the last several years and haven't ever, manned up to do or womaned up to do or whatever. And, they give it to each other. And then like the next scene that we see them in, their relationship hasn't changed really, right? Like there's a kind of honesty that creates a sense of integrity, like implies a sense of integrity in those characters that I think is really hard to build for a lot of movies.
Yeah.
I don't know if you follow what I'm trying to say. Is like, there are some people like they got to a point where they could be real with each other. I think my wife and I ended up talking a lot about sorry, I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but it'll circle back. So they go on the walk, right?
Yeah.
Let me walk you back or whatever it is. I don't even remember what sets it up. But then they walk by the river and there's the ice slipping scene at the end. Yes. And we talked about this, my wife and I, because we were talking about like there's not a lot in the film that feels like there's a lot of chemistry, like they're really like longing or looking into each other's eyes deeply or whatever. There's not a lot of that. And my wife was like, well, by the time they get to the ice slipping scene, like it's very clear that the relation. I'm like, no. But that whole scene, and maybe this is a director thing, what's his face, Turtle Taub. Maybe it's a thing that hit the cutting room floor and it just worked out. There's a lot implied there, right? There's a lot of those like early, maybe it's not everybody's experience, but certainly my experience early in the relationship, there's that we click, right? We can sit and talk or walk and talk or whatever and like lose track of time, right? Mm-hmm. And through that conversation, we are bonding and we are connecting with each other. And like I bring my life experience to that little montage, right? That short clip of let me walk you home. Here we are at the river. Now we're slipping on ice. That I bring to that, I bring to the film. Time has elapsed here. That was a long walk with a lot of conversation. They're very cold at the end, but it doesn't matter because they've bonded through this conversation. But the movie doesn't really give that to us. And I wondered, I'd asked my wife, I'm like, I wonder if people who didn't bond with their significant other that way, if they don't bring the same context to that or get it, and maybe this couple doesn't work for them.
Yeah.
I said I was going to bring it full circle, and then I kind of forgot how we were connecting. I think it's about trying to understand the relationship that Bill Pullman has, and the believability of that character. I think there's a honesty to it that is not about trying to make it feel like a fairy tale romance. It feels like the development of a very kind of, solid start to what maybe is a healthy marriage. Who knows? 95 to 20. Maybe they're still going. I don't know.
Well, you mentioned the kind of the slipping on the ice scene.
Slippery here. Come on. Got this far. I'll take you the rest.
You gotta watch it. A little icy. So you gonna go see Peter tomorrow?
Whoa. Wow.
Do not take me with you.
No, it's all right.
You got it?
Too bad. Yeah.
Okay.
In Oklahoma, we get you can at least count on 1 or 2 winter storms like during this, but there are a couple of days, and so I don't have tons of experience with ice, but enough to just almost be bugged by that scene, because certainly with them being in Chicago, it's almost as if they have never lived in the city before. but it is a really cute scene. But were there any other scenes that you connected to, or even Rihanna? Because you mentioned she was quoting a lot. For me, I didn't pick up a lot of quotes in this movie, but was there anything that stood out to you?
Yeah, I think being able to quote the whole thing was less about being able to quote the whole thing and more about, about how quotable the movie was, and more about just she likes the movie and has watched it a number of times, and
Gotcha. Yeah,
can go there. Apparently, she also did the monologue at the very beginning of the movie where Sandra Bullock is talking to Peter. It's in the hospital at the very beginning, and goes into the, have you ever fallen in love with someone you haven't even talked to, like that. Apparently she did that monologue in drama. And
okay.
Yeah.
So
she knows a lot of it. It doesn't have to do with how well it's written. It just has to do with her knowing it well. We talked about the scene where they were opening presents.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that very much feels like where the movie starts to make sense.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Again, I think it is in that scene that you either get it and start enjoying it for what it is, or you probably checked out and said, this movie's not for me.
Yeah. To catch you off real quick, I'm a huge fan of the website Letterboxd, which is essentially social media for films, and I'm on there a lot. And I don't do it so much, but a lot of people usually just leave like little one sentence reviews, and they're real funny sometimes. I don't know who to credit this to, but when I went to this film and looked at the reviews, somebody had rated this like 5 hearts, and their quick review was, "Y'all, they knit her a stocking."
Yes. Yeah.
It perfectly, and when you think about it, it's just like, oh yeah, I mean, they're so loving and accepting of her just right away. It's just, no matter where you are, like in a relationship, that's like what you hope, when you start like dating that person and meet their family, that's the ideal situation, that right away they would immediately knit you a stocking to hang on the chimney.
Yes. Exactly. So I tried to do this thing where I tried to write my own little synopsis. I just had fun with it because we kind of talked about, if there's anything that I think is really weird about, or odd, strikes me as odd about the movie, is some of the scenes go a bit long or start a bit early. Yes. There's a lot of like, we're really showing that they pulled up in the car and got out of the car and walked into the house, and it's like the pacing feels a little odd. I asked Rihanna, I was like, do you think that's because they're expecting the audience to be talking about how cringy everything is, all these relationships and the situation? And we had a good laugh about that. Maybe it's intentional, but it definitely doesn't feel like the kind of pacing that we're used to now. So anyway, I was having fun, kind of typing something, and I included this really loving family. So my short synopsis is: wage slave and ethically challenged cat lady with no living kin and severe issues communicating her intentions, and a detailed account of recent major life events, but with an exceptional sense of self-esteem, is surrounded by terrible but loving listeners who don't ask many questions anyway. That's what I put in my synopsis. They just so open and willing to love her right off the bat.
Could you write the intros for me for all my movies? That was wonderful.
I don't know. Maybe if they all have enough time devoted to walking into the house. The family is loving to a fault. They're all loving to a fault, right? And that's a part of the appeal. And I think even trying to make it a little bit more believable and put myself in this world. I think the expression of love that they give to her is not even just about her, but about loving this member of their family who's kind of a butt.
Yeah.
Maybe not kind of a butt, like really a butt.
Yeah. And I think everybody has one of those in their family, Yeah. And it's probably the wrong scene to have as my favorite scene, but it's just cutaway shot that probably a second unit director picked up, and it's the paperboy. I don't know if you guys picked up on it. The paperboy who's delivering the newspapers and just completely just wipes out on the bike.
Yes.
Yes. And
yes.
I mean, it was so funny. And so like, I was just like, surely they did not, wasn't meant to happen. And I read about, I mean, it's always internet, so it's always using the internet. So who knows how factual this is, but I read that this was indeed an accident and the kid actually broke his wrist. But,
oh my God.
I don't know if it does in a weird way. It kind of really vibes with this movie though. Like, it's just kind of like, yep, we're just, we're capturing what we're, getting. And, it's just kind of, yeah. But anyway, I just found that really, I just found that really funny. Well,
no, you may have named the one scene that my son will actually remember from the film.
Yeah, true. Maybe
we paused it and rewatched it for it.
Yeah.
Movie musings.
We were talking a lot about family. I'm going to go really kind of dark and deep here, but obviously Lucy, this character, a lot of tragedy in her life. She's very lonely at the beginning of this movie and during most of the time. So when were you at one of your loneliest states?
Oh my gosh. Wow, Nathan. Et tu brute. What's the podcast, right? You've got millions of listeners.
Millions. Let me tell you, I can't keep up with all the feedback.
I know. No, man, there's a honest answer. There is a point where I was trying to become a teacher after graduation. I was applying for and taking classes in Houston while still living in Longview. And you helped get me through that year. But I was in a hotel. I had some like interview or something. I didn't get like a lot of them at that point because I wasn't certified or anything yet. But I was sitting in this hotel room by myself in Houston and like didn't have, I just got out of college and didn't have very much money or whatever, and was kind of like didn't go out and do anything in the city, and for whatever reason had this like view of the city that was really great, like see the whole skyline kind of thing, and was just sitting, and I turned off the lights in the hotel room and was like staring at this skyline, and I don't know, man, just like feeling like, what am I doing? And I'm here by myself, and like there's no prospect really. Nobody's buying what I got right now. And just sat there for a minute. I don't know if that's the same kind of tragedy, but it was definitely that same feeling of like, I want to go do things. I want to get a stamp on my passport, but I can't see it right now. I don't see it happening.
And just real quickly, both Abel and I, we went to Baylor. We both graduated and both quickly did not have jobs. So we both ended up moving back to our hometown, and we're trying to find opportunities, but also kind of working a little bit in the meantime. And so, especially in Longview, there was not much to do. And I still talk about this all the time because I don't know why it still kind of boggles our mind that like people like actively go to Chili's like all the time. Like the Chili's here in Norman, the parking lot is full all the time. I haven't been there in like so long. It's been so long, but anytime I see a Chili's, I just think of how much time we spent there because there was nothing else to do in Longview. It was like the only establishment that stayed open past 9 o'clock. And we would go, we'd sit in the bar and get the bottomless Tostito chips. And I don't know if maybe we got a beer. I can't even remember. Probably not. But
we could afford it maybe.
Yeah. And we just sit there like for hours a lot. So that's what I always equate to Chili's. But yeah, that was definitely, I was glad you were there at the time for sure.
We just weren't cool enough to come up with a hip name to call it like one of our friends did. We didn't call it the Red Pepper Grill.
Right. That's right. Well, so now I'm going to turn it. I made things really sad. So what's one of your favorite Christmas memories?
Oh man. When my kids, yeah. I mean, I go to my kids first. Then I jump to childhood, but let's stick with the kids one. Man, as a dad, the first Christmas that I was really able to kind of set up Christmas morning the way that I really wanted to, for my daughter and my son. We did like this TP thing that we bought them, and then like the presents were inside or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Like I had a lot of fun with that, and then was there, of course, when they came running in and didn't know what to expect, and they were little. I mean, it was probably 2 and 4 or something like that. But it was, yeah, man, that tops even the Christmas where I swear growing up, I got like everything I asked for. I got like a saxophone and a bunch of superhero trading cards. And I don't know, thought like this is the best. And I think, man, that even tops it, getting to be the one.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, for sure. It goes to a whole new level when you do have kids of your own, for sure.
Yeah.
We talked about it a little bit, but if you could pick one Sandra Bullock film that's your favorite, what would you like? If you're on a desert island, you only had to have one Sandra Bullock film, what would it be?
What is this? Is this Hot Ones? Like the questions are getting harder as we go?
Maybe.
I gotta pick one. Oh man, Nathan. Maybe Miss Congeniality.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I think it's maybe one of the better. Although I haven't rewatched that in a long time either.
We watched it not too terribly long ago with Hallie, and like Hallie dug it. She really liked it. I mean, it's still a very entertaining movie to watch. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good pick.
It is in my memory. I think it has to be that, or I mean, it's a hard question because I'm kind of dumb for Sandra Bullock, right? So I like the movies that are not. I know they're not good films, but I still enjoy watching Sandra Bullock in it, like Practical Magic and 28 Days, and like whatever. She can just be on screen doing whatever, and I'm just enthralled. I don't know.
Well, that I have to throw out, and I'm kind of cheating because I had my answer before I asked you, but. We loved it, and I want to revisit it because it's been a while. But Wendy and I went and saw The Heat in the theater with her and Melissa McCarthy, and we laughed so much during that. And Hallie was a little younger at the time, so it was probably one of those rare chances that we went and saw a movie. And actually, I remember it was like kind of one of the first theaters to have like the actual like recliners and order food like laid back, so the experience was really good. Full theater, so everybody was laughing. So I don't know if it completely holds up, but that is one I just like. I've wanted to watch again, but I love The Heat. Did you see that one?
I don't think I did.
Oh, okay.
You mentioned it was when Hallie was little, so I'm wondering if maybe it hit at a time where
where
we were parenting and not missed everything that came out.
Yeah. So definitely not one that you can watch with your kids.
Okay.
So yeah, it came out in 2013. So
okay.
Yeah. But
that was Gwen. So we didn't see any of it.
Yeah.
Rom-com rankings.
The first one is the romantic chemistry between the leads. We've kind of hit it on a little bit. So 1 heart being the lowest, 5 being the highest. Lucy and Jack, what do you give them?
I give it a solid 3.
Okay, that's what
it's a solid 3.
Yeah, that's what I did as well. And I think we could. I'm kind of speaking for you a little bit, but I feel like we both can say, because maybe from some heavier lifting from Sandra Bullock's part.
Absolutely.
Yeah. She brings that chemistry way up there. So just kind of like, hey, Bill, just follow my lead. And
definitely, she's got all the looks, she's got all the right intonations, and he is kind of this bumbling idiot. I mean, there's one moment that I can picture where he's in the van and this camera cuts to him and it follows. He's not saying anything, but he like makes this face and kind of twists his hands on the wheel or whatever, and I'm like, what are you doing?
we kind of talked about it a little bit, and you mentioned as well, but the second category is the best friend aspect. And so this is, that kind of that support system. You mentioned her boss, being one of them, Jerry, played by Jason Bernard. I think also you'd have Jack Warden, who plays Saul, this kind of family friend. I mean, he's I feel like both of them are kind of the stand-ins for the audience a little bit, but what would you rate this category?
Nathan, you're leaving out completely. I mean, I widely interpreted this as the whole family. This is a solid 5. I mean, the best friends as the people who wrap around to support through this whole, kind of wacky adventure of, this burgeoning relationship. I think, they make it, right. I mean, Sandra Bullock makes it, but they are what makes the film special and make it work and make it something that's worth rewatching.
I never have a problem changing my initial feelings, like as we record this thing, and you just saying that right there, instead of taking it as kind of some individuals. You're right. I'm going to rank it 5 as well. I'm taking your lead on that. You're so right. Yeah. I do want to talk about the Saul character a little bit. Jack Warden, who plays him, does a really good job. He really throws Lucy out there on a limb. Quite
oh my gosh!
Yeah, it's
completely lets her down.
Yeah, completely.
He says it himself. Saul. He says, "I'm a putz." Right.
Yes.
Take it from a putz. Don't be a putz. And I think at that point that's maybe the most redeeming thing we got going for Saul right there is. He is at least understanding of the fact that he really dropped the ball here and
yeah. So watching it, I was like, okay, I know I've seen Jack Warden before. What has he been in before? So I do the IMDb thing, and this movie, for better or worse, was a big part of my teenage years. But he was the dad in Dirty Work, the movie written and starring Norm Macdonald. Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah, only with you.
Yeah. So anyway, I was like, oh yeah, no, I bet he definitely wants to be remembered for this film rather than Dirty Work. Well, the third category, I don't know if he had a chance. I kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. Did you get a chance to listen to the soundtrack at all?
I didn't go look up the soundtrack. I rated it a 1.
Okay.
I rated it a 1 because you gave me these categories ahead of time, and so I was looking for it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Did you listen to the instrumental?
Yes.
Because I would have put some of the instrumentals behind Willy Wonka, like this bumbling or Home Alone or something,
Yeah.
A lot of it was the burglars in the house at Home Alone.
Yeah. Yes. So I'm glad you did. I was probably being a little nicer. I ended up rating it 2. Now, if you took some of the songs, so I think it does play a big part at some point, maybe the opening credits. I can't quite remember, but This Will Be an Everlasting Love by Aretha Franklin. Complete classic, really good. And sprinkled through are these kind of older holiday songs you hear sometimes. One by Ella Fitzgerald. So that's some of it. But this, I did listen to the score. It's by Randy Edelman. And I won't hit on all the movies he's done, but I'm not a composer. So I bet he is rich beyond belief because he's done a lot of movies. But here's just a couple of the soundtracks. Okay. Leap Year. Let's see. The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor.
Okay.
Let's see, 27 Dresses, which we did actually cover on the film. Underdog, the live action Underdog. Balls of Fury, the ping pong movie.
Yeah. Some big ones.
Some big ones. So all that to say, he's done lots of work, but nobody's throwing on Randy Edelman in the back. Oh, Black Knight, the Martin Lawrence film. So he the Skulls. Now he did.
Oh, the Skulls. Oh.
Yeah. So anyway, Shanghai Noon. So all movies that are very much oh yeah, no, I know that movie, but like, could you pick out the music from it? No, you can't. And you hit the nail. Like, you should just. I mean, you don't have to listen to the whole soundtrack. You can like flip through it really fast. But yeah, I mean, all I could think of was like a '90s sitcom. Like, oh, they're slipping on ice, so let's like. I don't know. It's just like, like,
yeah, like borderline Looney Tunes instrumentation. There's this thing that strings do, and sometimes, and the composers use, where they like scoop the notes in the melody, and so it's like, and it's that like kind of bumbling oath melody that I think we associate with all that stuff.
I'm sorry. I hope Randy Edelman fans don't come, and like.
Okay, start, Randy. You get that money, man. Show me the money.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's
I meant Jerry Maguire had a really big impact on
in my head now. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Hey, check out episode 51 where we covered Jerry Maguire, one of my favorite movies. Okay. So
I was behind.
What's that?
I told you I was behind in watching or listening.
Oh yeah.
I will.
Okay, so I'm really interested to see how you rate this fourth category. So the chase scene or the declaration of love. I feel like it could kind of be two parts. I don't know if you disagree with me. The wedding scene in the hospital chapel leading to back when Lucy's at her subway toll booth. So what do you rate this?
Yeah, first of all, I wrote my score for this category and then took 0 notes. So I'm going to do this off the cuff. I apologize.
Yeah.
I gave it a 5.
Oh wow!
I know why I gave it a 5. I gave it a 5 because I'm a sucker for the twist on what expectations are, and so I think you hit it. It's a 2-parter. I think it first and foremost, the fact that we're calling it a chase scene or a big declaration of love or whatever. I think it's a complete anticlimactic way of doing all of this, right? I mean, first of all, nobody runs to the ceremony. She's late getting there or whatever, but nobody's like, pounding down the door or whatever. We don't have the the graduate, thing going on or whatever, right? There's no big interruption, but she says her piece there, and it is completely disruptive, right? This little ceremony at the hospital chapel or whatever goes completely off the rails. It turns into a massive thing, and she just kind of and kind of slips out the back, right? That's the end of the story for her in her mind, right? It's like, I've said my piece, I've done the thing, I told him I loved him, not that one, the other one, right? And like, she's done. She's back in the thing. She's making her plans. Her plans involve she's going to quit her job. She's taken all those actions that they had in their moment of truth, right? So it's like, again, it's not waiting on the other person to change or anything. Like she's making her life changes. It's not a super happy ending for her, but she's moving on, right? She's doing her thing. And then here he shows up, and he doesn't just show up and make this big elaborate, again, the script and the dialogue are not doing any favors. They're not carrying any of the load here. What carries the load is that the whole family is there, right? And it's not any, he is proposing. He does the thing. He goes behind the booth. He goes on one knee, like, Marcy, Marcy? Elsie tells him to do, right? He's got to go in and do this. Is how it looks, right? He's doing it. Anyway, he goes down, he gets on one knee, he does the thing. But at the same time, like it is the whole family proposing. And I think that resonates. That feels like it does the movie justice for what it set out to do. It sets it all up. It comes to a head at the opening present scene that she's looking to belong in this family, and then the whole family shows up to make that happen.
I need to ask you a question.
Get down on your knee. It's more romantic.
He's proposing. Let him do it.
I am letting him do it.
If I can critique it at all, it's that I don't need the denim weed. I don't need the what happens after that, where they're on the just married on the L, and they talk about getting the stamp or whatever. All of that's stupid, right? I think no, I honestly, because it really crushed what I thought was a really strong scene. She tells the story at the beginning of the movie about how did my dad know when he fell in love with my mom, and my mom said, or dad said she gave me the world, right? And it's this globe, it's the actual globe, and then he gives her the snow globe with Florence in it, with the globe behind her in the shot, right? Like over her shoulder. And I'm like, okay, a little heavy handed, but yeah, this is a nice way to tie this up. And then, we go on to talk about how she's going just to get a stamp or what. I don't know. I didn't need any of that. But no, I liked it. I liked the chase scene, the Declaration of Love, because it didn't drop what the movie had set up. It finished it.
Yeah. So the hospital scene, I mean, it works like, once again, like for this movie, but it feels like almost like an episode out of like Full House or something, with just all the like, ooh, and hey, and like, all that, it's a little like, it's definitely over the top. But like you mentioned, when she's in the toll booth and that ring comes in instead of the token, and when she looks up, and even it had been a while since I'd seen it. I mean, obviously I knew like he was there, but when the whole family was there, I was like, I was always like, yeah, that was good. That was a good move. So I did give this like 4 hearts. I docked it for points because he just mentioned it. That's why I laughed so much. The subway train with the just married sign on it, like, he didn't really have Jack did not have a connection to the subway really at all.
Nor did she really. I mean, it's where she worked. I don't.
That was what you kind of dogged the last lines. I kind of liked the last lines and tying it kind of into the movie. Peter once asked me when it was that I fell in love with Jack, and I told him it was while you were sleeping. Yes, cheesy, corny, but I thought it was a nice way to tie it up. So, but the just married sign on the subway train, I was like, really? But anyway, so rewatchability. What do you give this?
I gave it a 4.
Okay.
So it's, even after another watch, like, I don't know that it's a movie that I'm going to go around recommending to anybody.
Yeah.
But I said it before, for a movie from 1995 that I could watch with my whole family, that I didn't feel like had any super racist or sexist or misogynistic or whatever, it didn't have any big things in it that I felt like we really got to look past that to see what it was a different time or whatever. It all lands. I think the jokes, even not anything that they would have thought about when they were making the movie, but some stuff really dates movies now, like all the cars look old and everything, but like, I don't know how much they use like landline phones and stuff like that can sometimes like really get in the way now for me in movies of experiencing it as something more than a really dated kind of historical film. And I think they avoided a lot of those pitfalls. Again, probably not intentionally, but it does, and it feels like it could still be something that is relatable to now. I don't know. I think it high rewatchability, especially because I feel like it's so friendly, it's so accessible.
Yeah. If people were wondering, you probably watched it this way. It's on Disney Plus, so it was, especially as these streaming services start. They keep on dumping movies off their streaming services. So this one was actually pretty easy for us to find. And like you said, yes, super easy to watch with the family, PG. And I wanted to touch, you mentioned it real quick, but yeah, I made a note at some point. I can't remember exactly how it plays in, but I made the note that answering machines really solved a lot of plot issues in early 90s movies.
Answering machine.
I think it's when it's left and like his actual fiance leaves a message or something, and that's like how we like learn about her. And I'm like, well, that was sure convenient. Rewatchability, I gave it 3.5. I will say not quite as taken as I thought I would be by this film, but like you said, I think the family aspect of it and Sandra Bullock's performance really raises it up.
But I'll draw just a point of contrast real quickly. because I'm specifically thinking about, or was thinking about when I was scoring it, about like You've Got Mail. If I tried to watch You've Got Mail with my kids, we would spend as long on the movie paused trying to explain how the internet used to work so that they would understand what even any of it meant. You know, like, I don't know, like there would be so much time invested in just trying to help somebody that wasn't around at that time to understand what the movie was about. And this movie didn't need a lot of that, right? You called it out with The Answering Machine. I also think it was accessible in the sense of, I talked about watching it with my daughter, and she had some great lines. So when Sandra Bullock's leaving the hospital for the first time, Gwen's like, "Wait, stop, pause the film," and I'm like, "Okay, here we go. There's something happened that I missed, and we're gonna have to explain to her." And she just looks over at us and she goes, "This is so messed up." Couldn't handle the relationship and the lying and all that kind of stuff. And then after the walk home scene with her slipping on the ice and everything, she stop the film, stop it. I'm like, okay, let's what is it? And they just finished slipping on the ice and everything, and she goes, "I think it would be better if she were with him instead of Peter." My daughter is 9, almost 10. So, I don't know, maybe it makes me a bad parent or whatever. And then by the time they got to the wedding scene, she was completely upside down in the chair that she was sitting in, like watching it upside down with her hands over her ears.
Okay.
And she's like, she said, I'm gonna have to play a game on the phone. She said, I can't watch this.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
So, I don't know. She was a part of it, right? She was able to follow the film and enjoy it for what it was.
Yeah, that's funny. Real quick tidbit. So I read that the original screenplay was actually about a woman in a coma and a man pretending to be her fiance, and many studio executives thought that this was too predatory, and one suggested reversing the roles. And once the script was rewritten, it got picked up by Hollywood Pictures. But yeah, it's funny that she made that note because like once again, Sandra Bullock, the perfect actress to pull this off, but we didn't really even touch about the fact that just like how wrong this whole movie is.
The whole thing. Yeah.
I
I think for some reason that chime or that rings a chord for me with like Mel Gibson, What Women Want, where you could like hear their thoughts or something. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work in reverse. Maybe that's, I don't know, maybe that's sexist of me. Just no.
Recommendations.
TV show Ted Lasso, of course.
Yes.
If you needed one more person in your life to recommend it to you, millions of listeners of this podcast, Ted Lasso is the one to watch. But if you've got the Apple TV subscription or whatever, don't sleep on Severance before you cancel the sub.
Yeah,
really
great.
Solid. Good.
Amazing.
Not anything new, but also it's a little something different. Probably not a lot of your people that you have on the show here recommend video games. I've been playing through Hogwarts Legacy, and it is just a wonderful love story to the whole Wizarding world. So if you're a Harry Potter fan, or were at one time, it's a great, enjoyable taste in that. Lots of Easter eggs, lots of fun things to pay attention to and kind of discover throughout the game. Book-wise, Three Body Problem was recommended to me in the past year. I've read the whole trilogy back to back by Liu Xinxin. It's a Chinese author. It's all translated. It's wonderful sci-fi, really deep and heady kind of stuff, but really well done and really unique and kind of fresh perspective on things. So Three Body Problem, got to watch it. They also, I can't remember what the Chinese company is. They have released a series that you have to watch like subtitled or whatever. It's not great, but there is a series that I think you can watch all of on YouTube for free. And then finally, I was going to say, just other movie wise, did you watch Across the Spider-Verse yet?
Oh yes, yeah. Once again, another podcast episode you could catch up on. We hit on.
Did you already do it?
Yeah, we did.
You talking about it?
We just did a quick. It was like a quick 10-minute discussion about the film.
Oh well, I don't know what you said then, but my take is that I think the whole trilogy is going to be the best Marvel superhero films, the way that the Lego Batman is the best Batman film.
Yes. Yes.
I think we will look back on, and I mean, the third movie hasn't even come out yet, but I think we're going to look back on the trilogy as like that's as good as Marvel got.
Yeah. So episode 54, if people want to catch 54.
Up. See, I missed there we go.
No, you're good. So
sorry, Nathan.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I thought it was wonderful. So my recommendation is, so I mentioned we took a road trip through St. Louis and Chicago, and so Whitney definitely, she blows through audiobooks, but she picked this one from Curtis Sittenfeld. I think that's how you say her name. But because she had read one of her other books, and so we listened to it. So I kind of laughed when I made notes about it, because this book actually came out in 2017. So it's not that recent, but I mean, I didn't know. I just listened to it. But it's actually it's a series of short stories. But it's called "You Think It, I'll Say It." And anyway, I just really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the short story aspect of it. I will say most of them are from the female perspective. There's a couple from the male perspective, but at first we didn't even know it was short stories, and so I was kind of waiting for all these different characters to connect. They never did, and it was the same female voice that was reading it, so but anyway, really good. Especially, it's a book that will really speak to you if you're middle aged, around like we are. But I will also front it with saying, if you listen to it, I hope you feel kind of secure in the relationship that you're in, because a lot of the short stories center around basically this crisis moment with the partner that they're with. So anyway, I will say that. But anyway, I really dug it. It'd been a while since I'd listened to or I don't know if it's fair to say you read the book, but anyway, I enjoyed it. But Whitney really likes that author, so anyway, it made me be like, oh, I would like to check out the other stuff.
Say it again, Curtis
Sittenfeld.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. Well, so next week, if we're not talking about, I keep teasing like there's all these summer movies I want to talk about. So I'm not quite sure when this episode will release, but for sure, the next romantic comedy that we'll be talking about is one of the more recent movies on the list. It's 2020's surprise Hulu hit, Palm Springs, starring Adam. I said Adam. It's not Adam. Is it Adam Sandberg? That doesn't sound
Sandberg.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
It's Adam. I don't know why. It's like
I think it's Adam Sandberg.
Yeah.
If it's not, we're both wrong.
I know. I don't know why. Andy. It's Andy Sandberg. So.
Oh yeah.
Stupid.
Adam Sandler, Andy Sandberg.
Yeah, this stupid auto correct.
That's all right. You can cut it out and make us both sound. No, it's Andy Sandberg.
Andy Sandberg. I was like, that is not right. Okay. But anyway, we'll be. I might leave that in. That's kind of funny, but because I love Andy Samberg, that's why I was like, that's not right. But it's starring him, Kristen Melody, and J.K. Simmons. It falls at number 45 on the list. Did you happen to see Palm Springs?
I didn't. But while we were, whatever, I was looking up random rom-com stuff. I'm not a big rom-commer, but maybe I should have led with that.
I don't think I've ever.
Get me on for something that I'm good at, Nathan, because I know for musicals and rom-coms. And
I know.
Like, I know. I'm recommending Harry Potter and sci-fi to you.
Yeah.
Okay. No, but it was on a list of like kind of indie rom-coms that put an interesting twist on on the rom-com format, and so it's on my list now of like, I missed that one. Gotta check it out.
Yeah, no, you should. Once again, it's not one to watch with kiddos in the room, but I loved it. So I'm excited to rewatch it because it was one of my favorite from the year. It's hilarious. Kind of takes a spin on the Groundhog's Day kind of concept of things, but it is really good. So and if you have Hulu, it's up there and you can watch it. So that'll be fun to talk about that movie. So as always, check out moviesourlife.com for episode reviews and more. If you love this podcast, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. This really helps us, according to Abel, build upon our millions and millions of listeners. So,
5 hearts, y'all. 5 hearts.
Yeah. So thanks again so much, Abel. I'm not quite sure what the runtime of this because we know each other so well. We may have been talking about this movie longer than the movie itself, and I don't know if While You Were Sleeping deserves that kind of treatment, but we did it. Well, thanks for doing this, and thanks again to all our listeners.